Almost everything that you've been taught to do with your painful emotions falls into one of two unhealthy extremes. Either most people have been taught to push their emotions down in one form or another, or you've been taught to drown in them. And here's the problem. Neither one of those actually heals them. Now, today I am going to teach you the healthiest way to work through difficult emotions. This is a tool that I teach therapists, coaches, clients that helps emotions to actually move through your system instead of getting trapped inside of you. And stay with me until the end because I am going to actually guide you through this exercise, which takes only a brief couple of minutes so that you can not only experience it yourself, but so that you can use it with others. So welcome back to the Holistic Therapy Revolution. I am Beth Miller. I've been a holistic therapist and a holistic trauma therapist for over 25 years. And I'm also the creator of the Advanced Holistic Counseling and Coaching model. And this is where we combine the most effective tools from traditional psychotherapy and marry them into a system of healing with coaching, neuroscience, somatic healing, spirituality, holistic modalities, meditation, mindfulness, and more, so that clients and therapists can experience more inspired healing at a faster rate. So if you're a therapist or a coach or a healer or a doctor that wants to learn more about those tools, you can check out the certification below. So here's the problem. Most people really only know two ways of dealing with emotions or dealing with hard emotions. Strategy one, minimize them. They distract. They stay busy. They tell themselves that they're fine. They say it doesn't matter. They say I'll deal with it later. They stuff the emotion. They sext, shop, porn, eat, sleep, distract in one way or another to try to avoid or numb out what they're feeling. But emotions don't disappear simply because we ignore them, as we all know. And eventually what happens is that these emotions that are being repressed, avoided, not attended to, lead into other things. They may leak in and become anxiety, weigh you down with depression, become a chronic type of stress, create burnout, or create physical symptoms or disease or challenges that present because the emotions are getting channeled elsewhere. Those emotions are causing a disruption in the system. Or sometimes they just explode because we finally had enough, or our ability to be able to distract or avoid is wearing thin. We've become more vulnerable to them. The old strategies of how to hold them back don't work. Now, here's the second strategy. And if you are somebody that minimizes like that and has in any way, and I know all of us, I think, have, just write in the comments, I minimize sometimes. I minimize sometimes. Now, the second strategy is actually the opposite. People maximize their emotions. They make them big. They get consumed by them. They replay the story over and over. They catastrophize. They spiral. They become completely consumed by what happens. They talk about it frequently. They feel about it frequently. They generate feelings about it by thinking about it and then feeling the surge of those emotions. They may also start getting actually addicted to feeling those emotions because there's something sort of satisfying or justifying about feeling those emotions. So instead of having an emotion, the emotion has them. Now, one of the easiest ways I like to think about maximizing is to just encourage you to think about a time when you were a teenager and you had a breakup in your life. And then what did you do when you had a breakup? You put on sad songs, right? Sad songs is a way of validating your emotion, but it also maximizes it. It activates it more. It encourages it. And that is a great example that probably most of us have done. But we have many ways of doing that as adults, which may include putting on sad songs, but may include some of the other examples that I gave as well. Now, surely there must be a better way, a different way that is healthier for us than those two options. And in advanced holistic counseling and coaching, we do teach a third option, and that is called integration. Now, integration means allowing an emotion to move through you instead of fighting it and instead of becoming it. This is where real emotional freedom begins. So I like to use a metaphor for minimizing and maximizing and then for integration to help people really get a picture of what I'm talking about. So I'd like you to imagine that you're on the beach for a minute and there's a giant tidal wave that is coming towards you. Now, for people that minimize their emotions, they're going to try to hold the wave back with the sheer will of their bare hands. They're going to be like, nope, I'm not going to feel this, pushing it away. And they may also somehow be able to avoid it at the same time, pretend it's not there while they're using all of this energy to try to hold back the emotions. I've often said to some of my clients that are trauma survivors, sometimes the act of avoiding actually is causing us more problems in our lives or is taking more energy than the experience of just feeling the emotions. So back to holding back this tidal wave. Now, you know what's going to happen, right? Eventually, this wave is going to crash. You're not going to be able to hold it back in perpetuity forever. Or let's say you get tired. You can't do it anymore in the same way. The way you held it back for 20 years just isn't working. And eventually, this wave is going to crash. It will flood everything. This repression, the chronic distracting, the avoiding, eventually leads to the emotions taking over and then causing us a fear about feeling emotions because they're so big and overwhelming. Now, we also can take a look at being on that beach and thinking about the person that maximizes. The person that is maximizing starts to detect that their emotions in the ocean are starting to rise. And what they do is they just dive right in. They dive right underneath the wave, and the ocean starts churning them around. The ocean is in charge of them. You get tossed around by all of these emotions, barely able to come up for air, and you're drowning in it. You're overwhelmed by it. You're consumed in it. That drowning feeling where you can't think clearly, where you lose yourself in the emotions, that is emotional overwhelm. We could see that neither one of these are really the best, right? Now, let's imagine something different. You're on this beach, but instead of one giant crashing wave, the water gradually flows through a series of small channels into the earth. Little by little, the water is absorbed. Little by little, the water is integrated into the larger body of the earth. Nothing explodes, nothing floods, nothing's denied, but there is water there. There are emotions, but the emotions, the water are allowed to move through. That is integration. You're not avoiding the emotion. You're not becoming the emotion. You're allowing the emotion to pass through. Now let's talk about why this works. When emotions aren't processed, and I think probably most people have heard the phrase, what you resist persists, and I would argue that that's probably pretty true. When emotions aren't processed, your nervous system keeps bringing them back. It's actually trying to finish something for you. Your body's not trying to punish you. Your whole being is really trying to heal you. People want to move in the direction of healing, and so does your brain, and so does your whole system. So every trigger that we get is information. Every difficult thing is really a welcome mat. Every time we are experiencing emotions or more intense emotions, difficult feelings, they're asking for attention. They're asking to be attended to so they can move and be healed. Not to panic, not to avoid them, just to give them attention. When we stop fighting our emotions, they often become much easier to move through. So I've used the integration tool with many clients and also taught many therapists this tool. And we get a lot of really good, successful feedback about this tool. And I remember working with a mother whose son had died of a drug overdose. And she wasn't really only grieving, right? Because that's really powerful and painful in so many ways, that loss. But she was also carrying the trauma of finding him and desperately trying to save him. Now, there's a lot of different parts of what that healing is going to look like. And I use different tools for different aspects of what people are going through. So for the trauma that was associated with many aspects of her son's passing, I used EMDR with her. We probably also used some EFT. But for the grief that was persistent, that is normal to feel powerful grief, but also have the sadness of the method of the loss and so on. Those are waves of emotions that are a normal part of our experiencing loss that we're not trying to erase, but we want to be able to not minimize or maximize. Maximizing looks like laying in bed for 3 weeks and becoming non-functional because the grief is overwhelming. Minimizing is pretending like nothing happened and doing your best to distract it every single second so that you don't have to feel any of the feelings. So the goal is integration with those feelings. And each time a wave of sadness or grief arrived, instead of pushing it away, instead of drowning inside of it, she learned how to let each feeling move through her, bit by bit, wave after wave. It didn't erase her love for him. It doesn't erase her son. It doesn't erase grief or sadness, but it allows her nervous system to stop fighting itself and to eventually be able to remember him with more love than just terror. And that is integration. Being able to think positive thoughts about him, not just about all of the sadness and the missing. And here's the good news. Integration, while I just gave an extreme example of using it on something super intense, this integration technique can be used if you're just annoyed in traffic. You can use it on really small events or really big ones and everything in between. Now, here's why this is so powerful. One of my favorite quotes comes from Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. He writes that the more we try to arrange life so that nothing disturbs us, the heavier life becomes. And isn't that true? We spend so much effort trying to prevent discomfort that preventing discomfort becomes exhausting. It becomes the preoccupation. It becomes the problem. Healing really begins, and frankly, thriving, when we stop fighting creation and life itself. We have to let life unfold and be able to let it pass through us instead of us trying to hold up the tidal wave or just dive underneath it and drown in it. So I'm going to guide you now through the brief exercise of integrating your emotions. And if you're watching on YouTube later and you want to replay this practice regularly, which I advise so that you can strengthen the muscle of it, I'll include a timestamp in the description so that you can jump in directly to the exercise wherever you need it, or tell your clients right where it starts so that they can just jump right in and use it. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you would like to, but you do not have to. If you would like to close your eyes, know that I'm going to be giving verbal descriptions. If you want to keep your eyes open, that's also perfectly fine. Step one is to observe and name the feelings that you have. So I'd like you now to notice the feelings that are hard for you, and we're going to label them. Don't judge the emotions, simply become the observer of the emotions that you have. So I'm going to use the example of sadness. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And let's say the feeling you have is sadness. Label that emotion, because research shows that putting words to our emotions reduces the intensity of the emotion itself. Step two now is to imagine that that feeling is actually in front of your chest. Rather than becoming the feeling, imagine placing it just outside your body, floating a few inches in front of your chest. This creates just enough distance to observe it without being overwhelmed by it. So notice that feeling just sitting right outside your chest. Next, I would like you to take a nice deep breath in. And as you inhale, imagine gently breathing that feeling into your chest and into your heart. This may sound counterintuitive because you've spent your life trying to push it away, but breathe it deeply into your heart and your chest. And now I'd like you to take a long, deep exhale through the mouth. And as you exhale, imagine the emotion gently leaving your body through your back. Now take another nice deep breath, and we'll return back to step one. Return back to noticing yourself and ask, what am I feeling now? The emotion that you had before may have increased in intensity, may have decreased, or may have stayed the same. And you may notice there's even another emotion that has popped up. Sometimes there'll be something else there. Maybe another emotion that was underneath the sadness, like anger or fear. Whatever emotions are there, label them, name them for yourself. Imagine those emotions being in front of your chest. On your next breath in, instead of pushing these emotions away, your healing is beginning by breathing them into your heart, into your chest. Let's do that now. And now, a great long exhale out through your mouth, and imagine those emotions passing out through your back. They have moved through you. Take a nice deep breath. You may already notice that you have a sense of more lightness. Go ahead and check in on how you're feeling again. What am I feeling now? Notice if any of the emotions have reduced or changed. Whatever is there, we'll do it again. Notice those emotions, label them. Breathe it deeply into your chest and into your heart. And then a huge long exhale as you let them pass out through your back. Now, if you'd like to keep going because you have more emotions or more intensity that's popping up, let's put this on pause. And if not, I'd like to give you a couple of tips and tricks. Very often, we'll have emotions in layers. You might notice that you're breathing in sadness and out sadness several times, and then perhaps great anxiety pops up. Do the same with the anxiety. Maybe anger is underneath that. Do the same on the anger. Work with each emotion that comes up in the same way until you feel lighter and more clear. Secondly, many people fear being with their emotions and breathing them in. This is a great way of building capacity and resiliency to label and notice emotions, to breathe them in, and to let them go. And we start realizing that emotions do not have to be avoided, nor do they always have to be crushing. Third, are you likely to feel sadness, tears, crying, anger? Of course. Let yourself feel those things. And also use this exercise to be able to let it pass through so you can let that moment go. 4, you may have to do this many times a day. If you're going through a hard time, let's say you're going through a breakup, you may have to do this 15 times a day, and that's okay. You may only have to do it 1 time a day, and that's okay. Every time you feel the wave of emotions coming up, use this exercise, and over time, sometimes even immediately, you're going to feel more relief. You can get back to functioning faster, and you will not have the impact of suppressing the emotions or drowning the emotions. Instead, you are teaching your body how to heal and let go of emotions, which is an extraordinary skill and capability to have. This is one of the tools that should go in our back pocket and become a very organic part of learning how to live with emotions and letting them pass through. And lastly, I've noticed that some people do this exercise best when we pair it with color. For example, they might breathe in that difficult emotion and have it be sort of like a black smoke. And when they breathe out, it might be like a light yellow or a light gray or a white. So if you're somebody that is visual and likes to use color, my suggestion is to pair color with this because it can make it even more effective for people. Now I'd like you to hear this brief little poem. The easiest way to slay fiery demons is to invite them in. Once you open up your rib cage, you breathe them into your chest. You let them pass through your heart. Then you exhale them out through your back. And somehow the fear of that charging bull gently lays down by your feet. 2 old friends curled up by the fire. Let us not fear all of the hard emotions, but instead have effective tools for working with them. And until I see you again on the Holistic Therapy Revolution, I hope you will subscribe, like, and please put in the comments what you're using this on so that we can all be with you as you are learning how to use one of the most effective integration tools for your emotions and for your life.